This is CBC Here and Now.
A lawyer says she's spoken with several women who say they've been sexually assaulted by RNC officers.
While those police officers were offering them a ride home late at night.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Oh, we saw some much welcome humidity and much welcome rain as well today. That is going to stick around as we head through the day tomorrow.
A request for proposals to possibly purchase this hill canceled by the government.
It has great value. Now, that value has to be realized by an optimized marble operation.
So what is the future of this famous skiing resort on the West Coast? Good question.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes.
And I'm Anthony Germain. More women are coming forward telling a local lawyer that some officers in the RNC sexually assaulted them.
Lynn Moore posted on social media that she's hearing from several victims, women who do not want to speak with the police. Here and Now's Mark Quinn reports.
We've been contacted by women who say that they were sexually assaulted by police officers on duty while those police officers were offering them a ride home late at night.
Lawyer Lynn Moore says the number of complaints she's heard from women about RNC officers has grown since yesterday after she posted on social media that some women had come to her. As of Monday, Moore was aware of the RNC's Douglas Snellgrove, who has been convicted of sexual assault, and another unnamed officer. But now the number of women she's heard from and the number of officers she's heard complaints about has more than doubled. Here's her fear.
That this is a culture of sexual abuse of women, that it's more than just one bad apple. It's a series of bad apples and maybe an institutional problem. So I am very concerned about the present day risk, although I have no present day complaints.
The RNC has turned down numerous requests from CBC for an interview about this, but it did issue a statement. It said anyone who's a victim of violence should come forward so the person responsible can be held accountable. But Lynn Moore says she doesn't expect any of the women she spoke with will complain to the police.
Many survivors of sexual assault find the criminal justice system to be a traumatizing process. To my knowledge, no one has complained to the police, and to my knowledge, no one has any intention of complaining to the police.
Women with these groups are reacting to the news today, and they say it's something they expected.
We're extremely disappointed and disheartened, but unfortunately not surprised. When we heard about the Snellgrove case and the trial and everything that went on there, we were really bringing forward a message that this isn't about one bad man or a couple bad men. This is about a culture of misogyny within that institution.
Moore doesn't know what she'll do with the complaints yet. She said there are legal options other than a class action. While the RNC has declined interviews, late today the force said it will hold a news conference about this tomorrow. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a man from Mount Pearl has been charged following a child pornography investigation. The RNC RCMP Integrated Internet Child Exploitation Team arrested the 24-year-old on July 6th. He's facing 2 charges, accessing and transmission of child pornography. Police say their investigation began after authorities were alerted to the online transmission of child pornography in February of 2020. They say a search of his residence in October uncovered evidence of online child exploitation activities. The man was released on multiple conditions and will appear in court in St. John's on August 10th.
There are now 2 people in hospital with COVID-19 from the ships anchored offshore. The only cases in the province are now connected to those 3 ships. This Portuguese fishing trawler in Bay Bulls is the 3rd ship to arrive in the province with cases of COVID-19. There are 4 cases connected to the Santa Cristina. One of those has been taken to the Health Sciences Centre. Public Health says all of the crew are in isolation. Now, this other Portuguese fishing trawler anchored in Conception Bay arrived last week. There are 31 cases on board the Princesa Santa Joana, and one of those, a critical case, is at the Health Sciences Centre. Public health officials say testing on board is complete and that the crew is isolating. Now, this tanker arrived at the beginning of the month, sailing under an Italian flag. 14 crew members on board the Ivor Ambition tested positive. So far, there haven't been any new cases on board. Public Health says testing on board that ship is also finished and that crew is also in isolation.
The owner of the Newfoundland Growlers and St. John's Sports and Entertainment aren't exactly seeing eye to eye lately.
That lease was never signed. Investment goes where it's wanted. It's not wanted here.
I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll try to explain what's going on coming up on Here and Now.
Well, yesterday we were talking about the lack of rain through Central, so I thought we'd dig into some of those numbers just to show you what's happening. From May to today, only 104 millimeters of rain has fallen through Gander. The record for the lowest amount of rain that has fallen is 111 millimeters. Now, we still have about 11 days to get into that, but it's still well below where we should be sitting. Normally, we see about 259 millimeters of rain. So we did see some about 4 or 5 millimeters through Central today. Other areas in the east have seen a lot more than that. This afternoon, we saw some showers and thunderstorms roll through, lots across the west coast as well, but that radar obviously not there. But you can see that picture there. Some storms are rolling through the northern Avalon right now. We're going to continue to see that. And even though we've been seeing a lack of rain, that fire hazard has certainly gone down, and that's thanks to that rain. We're going to see this over the next couple of days. Some more rain on the way, but I will get into all of those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, people on St. Pierre and Miquelon are celebrating. On August 9th, the border will once again open with Canada, allowing people to travel back and forth to this province. This change is great news for Steve Labar, who hasn't seen his children in Newfoundland in 2 years. He spent months pushing for the border to open.
Thank you to the government to finally listen to what we had to say, to finally realize that we're a big part of Newfoundland, because when we look at it, we have a big relation with Newfoundland now, being for years, started with the Prohibition, and it's still going on now, right? So it's a big loss for both our country, and to finally be able to see them, for us to go over, for them to come over here, it was about time, right? It was really about time.
Well, he's not the only one who's happy. We'll hear from more people with connections to the French Islands a little later in the show.
Well, it's back to the drawing board for Marble Mountain. The provincial government was looking to sell it and put out a request for proposals 3 years ago. Well, now it's cancelled that. So where does that leave the ski hill's future? Here now's Colleen Connors has more.
Lush and green today. No skiers in sight, but Marble Mountain Ski Resort is all the talk today. The Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation cancelled the request for proposals for Marble on July 15th. The RFP was first announced in June 2018. The government wanted the private sector to run the place. In a statement to CBC, it said the province received 3 submissions in total. Joe Dix, who owns Marble Inn Resort across the street, was one of them. He wanted to buy Marble Villa, the 5 acres surrounding it, and provide a funding arrangement to operate the chairlift.
I wasn't surprised at all. Yeah, it was 3 years old.
Right.
And it had deadlines in 2019. It had all but expired. So, no, it's an appropriate step.
The province says discussions around a renewed process to seek private sector interest is ongoing. Marble Mountain currently receives $1 million subsidy to operate. Dix thinks the province should sell now.
They're going to have to accept that the cost of subsidizing Marble for the next 5 years, being somewhere between $5 million and $10 million, are probably more costly than worrying about whether or not you get a big number for it.
In the Moya Green report, it said the province has no business running a ski hill, and it's costing $2 million a year, and suggested the private sector could improve operations, enhance visitor experience, and attract more tourists. Dix completely agrees and says the hill is not the problem.
Marble has great value to the province, it has great value to the region, it has great value. Now, that value has to be realized by an optimized Marble operation. It's not realized by standing still, eroding buildings, and ski hill chairs that aren't running. It needs to operate, and it needs the higher the level of operation at Marble, the better off we'll all be in the province. and the less subsidy that will be required from the province.
After a shoestring budget last season and one of the shortest ever, Dix just hopes the province sells before the snow comes. CBC requested an interview with the Minister of Tourism on this issue today, but he was unavailable. So what does the future ski season look like for this West Coast staple of tourism attraction? Who knows? Colleen Connors, CBC News, Steadybrook.
Well, St. John's Sports and Entertainment is facing off against businessman Dean McDonald in a match which may end with one less tenant at Mile 1.
Now, you may recall that McDonald once made a pitch to buy Mile 1 from the city. Now he says he just wants to see the Edge and Growlers return to St. John's Stadium, not be replaced by another team.
Here now's Jeremy Eaton has the latest.
There's been a lot of back and forth about basketball in St. John's. Will another team be moving into Mile 1? Where will the Edge end up? Today, St. John's Mayor Danny Breen addressed the media.
In 2019, we reached a tentative agreement on a 10-year lease agreement with the Growlers and the Edge, and that lease was never signed. And there was some discussion about some changes being made in the final copy. There were no changes made.
Breen says if it had been signed, there'd be no issues. But the Edge is calling foul.
I have 2 pages of changes here. There's actually 6 sections that were changed. I'm not going to get into an argument. Well, I am into an argument actually about the nonsense of that. The facts are clear. We've posted it on our website. They did change it.
A big sticking point for the city, the previous St. John's Edge, which was under different ownership, left behind a lot of debt.
So we couldn't even talk about a lease unless we cleaned that up. So we went back to the city with what we thought was a great idea, which we'll buy the Edge, we'll get rid of all the liabilities, the ring board will be back on. It's a win-win for everybody, and but I guess they don't view it that way.
We went through a year from 2019 onwards where we operated under the terms of the lease without a signed lease. I don't think that's good for the teams. It's not good for the city. It's not a good situation.
In April, the city advised Deakin Sports and Entertainment that there was no exclusivity deal. St. John's was free to sign with a third party, and it did.
As a basketball fan and as an Edge fan, I share the fans' disappointment with that we couldn't reach a lease agreement with the Edge to continue at Mile 1. But I am pleased that we have a new basketball team that will be playing this year.
That move leaves the Edge with no home, the Growlers with no lease, and McDonald scratching his head.
We don't want to manage the facility. We don't want to own it. We just want to lease. I don't know what we have to do short of turning ourselves into a pretzel to make something happen here. Investment goes where it's wanted. It's not wanted here. Newfoundland Growlers and Newfoundland Edge, they'll be coming to an arena near you soon. And just unfortunately, if you live in St. John's, it won't be there.
Which means both these teams could join a growing list of pro franchises to pack up and leave Mile 1, leaving the fans out in the cold. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, some new mining technology was announced today in Labrador City, and a new partnership involving the College of the North Atlantic, Memorial University, as well as some mining companies. The new technology is called a hyperspectral scanning unit. It's used to scan drill cores. The unit provides high-resolution images that are meant to provide better data. The hyperspectral unit is currently at the IOC mine in Western Labrador, but the government says it's a mobile unit that can be moved to where it's needed. 15 interns from the CNA, as well as students from MUN, will be trained on how to use the scanner. The project costs $4.5 million, with funding coming from the federal government, the province, as well as the mining sector.
When I was at school a few years ago, I did take geology, because as an engineer you're supposed to understand what the geologists are doing. But seriously, people were talking about one day we're going to have to go and do things differently. Today, it's almost on the line in the sand that say, today, that's the new way of doing things.
In the mining industry is projected to become a $4 billion industry in this province. This is a huge investment that is being made today towards that and continuing that industry. There are over 4,800 people employed in high-paying jobs in exploration and processing sites throughout rural Newfoundland. We're here today on one of them.
From what I'm told, we're the benchmark.
everybody is really happy about what we've done.
A group of fishermen is once again on the hunt for ghost gear. That's ahead on Here and Now.
A little bit of a break in the rain right now. We're still looking at the chance of showers, which could be heavy at times tonight and a little bit unsettled through the day tomorrow across the province. I'll get into all the details, your full forecast coming up.
Well, time now for a look at the weather, but before we get to that, Ashley, a lot of people are taking part in the recreational cod fishery this summer.
Yeah, but some people are catching more than cod. Take a look.
Look at the shark.
Look at the shark.
God damn it.
Look at that.
I told you I see the shark. Oh my God.
Yes, Robert Canning sent us this video. They were cod fishing off Exploits Island on Sunday, and they caught a fish. But as you could hear, they were shocked when a shark emerged from the deep.
Yeah, the shark circled around several times, apparently chasing the codfish on the line. You can see there are chunks of it.
Wow, the shark managed to take a big bite out of that codfish while the other half was hauled aboard. Wow, that must have been a big shocker to see. Getting that close, and we have more video.
Yeah, not too far away in New West Valley, another poor beagle shark sighting.
Yes, this video came from Tanya and Gordon Hall. Now, Tanya tells us it was her first time cod fishing, but she got more than she bargained for, and she actually hooked the shark.
Well, Tanya says that they did get a 25-pound cod as well, but the shark was certainly a surprise.
Yes, lots of shark sightings. Oh my goodness.
I was going to say, maybe not so much a surprise if you hook a shark lately. Well, that's a lot.
That's a close encounter.
Very close encounter for sure. We've had some pretty nice days for the food fishery for sure. Today, obviously a Tuesday, so not in that, but a beautiful afternoon if you like humidity. It felt like we were tropical today. Tropical island this afternoon. 25 degrees was the afternoon high in St. John's, 22 in Terra Nova, same thing through Gander. And then we've got those temperatures across Labrador into the teens and hovering around the 20-degree mark for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. You're still sitting there now, and temperatures across the island still sitting around 22 degrees for St. John's, 21 in Terra Nova. Factor in that dew point, it's still sitting at between 20 and 22, which means it's feeling more like 30 with that humidex. So actually earlier this afternoon, it was feeling more like 34 in St. John's, and that dew point that I just showed you, 22, we're actually just shy. 23.3 was the highest dew point that we've ever recorded here in St. John's. So certainly a warm one today. Along with all of that rain, seeing lots of showers work their way through eastern Newfoundland, which were heavy at times. Central, not so much seeing those showers, but along the west coast, we did have some severe thunderstorm watches earlier today. Those were for the thunderstorms that happened earlier this morning. That has since ended, but we're still looking at that chance of showers as we head through the evening hours tonight. You can see some of that lightning activity as well. Looks like as we get through the next hour or so, that risk of lightning should end in eastern Newfoundland, but we are still looking at that chance of showers through most of the night tonight. If we take a look at that future tracker, same thing for southeastern Labrador. We may see some heavy at times showers, but through central, more than likely just a few showers in the way through the overnight period. And as far as Labrador goes, once you see those showers clearing for southeast, it's actually looking like a fairly beautiful night tonight for most of Labrador. Your temperatures, though, a little cooler, 7 to 9 degrees, a little warmer actually up through Nain. Don't say that very often, but 10 degrees for Nain. Those winds generally light, but look at the temperatures across the island, still staying into those teens, 15 to 18 degrees rather, overnight tonight with those winds generally light, 5 to 10 kilometers per hour in the west, and about southwesterlies will be around 15 to 20 kilometers per hour the further east you go. So it will be an unsettled evening tomorrow. Pretty much the same thing. However, as the area of low pressure moves, we're going to start to see those winds shift more onshore. And when that happens, that means those temperatures are going to cool down. So as the day goes on, as we see that wind shift through central, even areas in eastern Newfoundland, that'll happen later in the day though for the east, but you're going to see your temperatures drop through the day as well. And that means we're going to see some drizzle and onshore flow for the north facing coast. Not so much for the south-facing coast this time, but you will see that chance of a few showers as the day goes on. Some sunshine as well, but an absolutely gorgeous day up across Labrador. Nothing but sunshine for you for the most part. Maybe the chance of a few showers along the strait, but overall, it will be a very beautiful day. Some more cloud cover will move in as you head through the evening hours. So temperatures tomorrow, 24 degrees for St. John's. The winds out of the west to start, then they'll shift northerly, and that's when we'll see that temperature drop. But the humidity is also going to stick around for most of the Avalon and all along the southern portion of the island as well. There's your temperatures through central. Note much cooler, sitting around 12 to 17 degrees. But as the day goes on, those temperatures are actually going to drop even more, down to probably 10 to 12 degrees by the evening hours, by supper time really. And then towards the west coast, you're looking at your winds out of the east, about 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. Now the southwest actually looks the nicest of the island tomorrow, 23 and some sunshine for Port aux Basques, and then showers and maybe a little bit of sunshine the further north you go, certainly towards the northern peninsula. St. Anthony, you'll sit around 18 degrees, and then same thing for Mary's Harbour to Cartwright, about 17 to 18 degrees as your afternoon highs. And then for the rest of the island, or rather the Big Land, you're looking at temperatures somewhere between 20 to 22 degrees, light winds, and plenty of sunshine. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look ahead to the weekend when I come back.
Well, thanks, Ashley. It was some interesting shark footage you saw just a few moments ago. I didn't see anybody volunteer to actually take the hook out of the shark's mouth, I notice. Well, fishermen aren't only hauling up sharks these days.
Yes, some professional fishermen are involved in a project to rid the ocean of what's called ghost gear. Last season, they collected crab pots, rope, and other pieces of fishing gear that would otherwise litter the environment.
And this year, they're back on the water doing it once again. Todd O'Brien from CBC Radio's The Broadcast spoke to a couple of the people who were involved in the ghost gear retrieval project in Fermuse.
We throw over that anchor that's there on the stern, and the chains follow. And if you're in 100 fathom of water, you let out 300 fathom of rope, and then you start dragging the bottom slowly, about a knot and a half, until you'll know if it catches onto something.
Did you know they would be out there?
Well, they were reported a while ago to DFO. So there was 11 boats. We were all on a grid to follow, and the line I was on, there was reported gear lost in that area, so I was lucky enough to find them.
Was there anything in them, like fish or crab?
No, there was nothing, only the empty jars and the bed bags.
Is there much stuff out there?
Well, the other day we found, I didn't, but one of the guys found 16 pots and a bit of trawl, and some other guy found 10. But now we're towing on strictly crab grounds now, so there's places where there's a lot of gill nets in there too, I guess, but we're not on that ground as of yet.
Bill, how's this season going for the recovery of the ghost gear?
We're just started. We're into our third day now, so the bit of gear I got here behind me, that's what we picked up in the last 2 or 3 days. So it's going pretty good, I must say. Now we'd like to have more. It's nice to see that there wasn't more where we were searching.
And how did things go last year?
Well, last year we had over 6 tons of gill nets, crab pots, old rope, old chains.
Yeah, and so what did you get here so far?
Just what you see here, I figure there's probably a ton, maybe a half a ton. Once we get this down to Petty Harbour, this has to be weighed and documented. So that's how come we know how much we land, right?
And basically, if you can identify who owns it, you'll contact them. Is that the way it works?
Yes. If the gear is of any use at all, if there's a name on it or a number, CFE number, this type of thing, they'll go back to DFO, who will contact that person to see whether or not they want the gear. If they don't want it, it will either go to a landfill or recycling.
How far out were you?
We were about 24 miles from the out of the harbour.
How deep?
94 fathoms we found the pots in, which is nearly 560 or 70 feet.
So what do you think of this whole program?
It's good, I'd say. It's a good idea to clean a lot of stuff off the bottom. Yeah, especially gill nets and that. I mean, they keep fishing and fishing for years. So the more stuff is taken up, the better for the environment, and less stuff being wasted, caught.
In 2019, the crab fishery wasn't very good, and as president of the board, I thought it'd be a good project to put some money in the fishermen's pockets, and also help with the environment, one thing and another. So that's really why we chased after it, and it's turned out to be a good project.
Now, this is going across the country. How are you guys stacking up compared to
From what I'm told, we're the benchmark. There's a couple of programs, different places, but we've took it over the top type of thing. That's the feeling I get on it. Everybody is really happy about what we've done.
In terms of the grounds you guys have been dragging, where have you been gone in the last 2 years?
From Cape St. Francis up as far as Cape Pine. Now we haven't got to Cape Pine just yet. We've been as far as Cape Ray so far.
Are there any areas you're expecting that are going to be more, I guess, a bit more stuff in the water?
Yeah, we're going to leave this community tomorrow morning. I think not tomorrow morning, the next morning, and head towards Petty Harbour. They'll do a bit of drag. We know there's gear there. The fishermen hooked when they're hauling their crab pots, so and we'll pick that up and whatever else is in the area.
All right. Okay. Well, listen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
We don't have the resources, either emotional, physical, financial, that we had at the start of the pandemic.
Is it over yet? This psychologist talks resilience and coping during COVID.
you're just saying, is it true? Is it true? Is it true? It's coming out on radio, it's coming out on news, but I'm really hoping the 9th of August we can get across the water, right?
And fingers are crossed in St. Pierre by those eager to finally reunite with family and friends.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, there's no question the pandemic has tested our resilience. We've dealt with, some of us, unemployment, waiting for vaccines, fear, boredom, a number of problems. Well, joining me now is psychologist Janine Hubbard to talk about this phase of the pandemic where a lot of people are at risk of snapping. Janine, it seems as though, for a lot of people, it feels like we're at the end of this. What are the dangers of this phase of the pandemic in your estimation?
Well, there are a lot of people who I think were hoping that everything's just going to return to normal, that we'll be back to our pre-pandemic times. And the reality is that's not going to be the case. Some of us are going to suffer more repercussions from the pandemic than others. But really, we have all been through a collective trauma, and that is leaving its mark on all of us.
Now, you say collective trauma. One of the analogies that I've heard and discussed is like a soldier will be in a war zone for a tour of duty and they manage to keep everything together and deal with what they have to deal with, and then when they get home they fall apart. Does that apply to what some of us are feeling right now?
It certainly can. We see the same analogy, for example, in people who are undergoing major health treatment, like cancer treatments, for example. They're so focused on the immediate concerns, the immediate needs, that they're not necessarily paying attention to some of their mental health concerns. And it's only once things get quiet, it's once things settle down, that you are then able to attend to the, oh wait, maybe I'm not coping as well as I thought I was.
It's almost as though we're on cue now. You can actually hear the ambulance in the background. But in terms of resilience, do we have a finite amount?
We do. Now, in some ways, resiliency is a muscle that we either use, and if we use it a lot, it's something some of us are really good at, and some people, it's a weaker muscle. We all have some of it, but it has been drained and exhausted over the past 16 months. Really, our adrenal systems have just been constantly on the go, and our bodies are tired, our minds are tired. We don't have the resources, either emotional, physical, financial, that we had at the start of the pandemic.
Now, there's a normal amount of stress that actually makes us rise to the challenges, a bit of normal daily life stress, but that's short term. I mean, a lot of us have been dealing with stress for, as you said, more than a year. What are the risks of having to deal with that much stress?
Well, we know that long-term risk that can come along with that are things like anxiety, depression. We've seen a huge increase in the number of eating disorders, for example. And we know that there is a percentage of the population who are at risk for PTSD or other post-traumatic responses. So we're actually really worried that we're going to see a significant surge and increase in mental health concerns over the next year.
All right, now there's a term, languishing, this sort of meh feeling of, you know, what's the point? Not necessarily depression, but sort of a mental purgatory. What's languishing?
Well, it's not an official medical term, obviously, but it is something that has been coined really to describe the situation a lot of us are in right now. We're not depressed, we're not burnt out, but we're sure not functioning at full capacity. We're finding we're having difficulties with concentration. We're kind of having fuzzy thought. We're just not as passionate about some of the things that we used to be really excited about. And we're just kind of, some people describe it as, you know, they're treading water. They're going through the motions to get through each day.
All right, well, let's talk about getting through each day. Final question, my favorite part of every interview with Janine Hubbard, solutions. What can we do to alleviate this meh?
Talk about it. What we're doing right now, addressing it, making sure people know that they're not alone, making sure people know that there's going to be various coping over the next year. So while some people may be happy to be free of their masks and off traveling and doing all the socializing, for other people it's going to be a really difficult year. So being respectful of differences in readiness and reaching out. Unfortunately, we're already starting to see wait lists increasing in terms of mental health services. So please don't wait until things get urgent and at a crisis. Reach out now if you're starting to have even mild symptoms.
All right, great. Now, how busy have you been of late?
I've never been busier.
Really?
Yeah, we're just seeing, again, a lot of people, much like a lot of medical care went unattended during the pandemic, a lot of the mental health needs, just again, people were focused on day-to-day coping. Right. They weren't necessarily dealing with some of the longer term things. So the psychology community, we've never been busier. That being said, please don't use that as a detractor. Please continue to reach out.
Get help if you can. All right, Janine, appreciate your time.
Anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Some good advice there. And on the topic of stress, it's been very stressful for people on St. Pierre. They've been stuck on their island, unable to get off and go to Newfoundland. But that's about to change. On August 9th, the border is opening. We have reaction from 3 people who are very glad to see travel finally resume.
My name is Steve. I'm from St. Pierre-Miquelon. I am a tour guide operator here on the island. My company is named Frenchie's Tours. I've been open now 4 years. Born and raised on the island, left here at the age of 15, went to Canada, stayed in Canada for 22 years. And now I've been back here on the island now 7 years. My company is open for 4. And hopefully now with the tourism industry coming back, hopefully it's going to be open for many more years.
My name is Anne-Marie Oud. Living in Miquelon this past 29 years. That's the other island next to St. Pierre. When we heard that the borders were opening, I flipped. I just really flipped out because last month we lost our daughter. She was 22 years old. And I have no family here, right? Just have my husband's family. So it's a good thing internet is there because we did diffuse it on Facebook. And my family did to see it, but didn't really get to say goodbye. Um, I don't know if I can believe it yet, because you're just saying, is it true? Is it true? Is it true? It's coming out on radio, it's coming out on news, but there's nothing written yet in a decree. So I'm really hoping the 9th of August we can get across the water, right?
My name's Tony Lucas. I'm originally from Miquelon. I live in St. John's right now, and I have to say I was ecstatic to finally get that news. You know, for islands that are so close to us, it's really nice and to finally have this opening happening. Well, it's been fairly difficult, you know. I have all my friends here. They have family living across Newfoundland, you know, some on Fogo Island, some on other various different islands in Newfoundland. And to have two islands that are in the same situation, just a different country, and yet, you know, it's just very difficult. I mean, I remember going down to Buren and looking over and thinking to myself, man, my family's over there and I can't see them. It was difficult for sure, yeah.
When I heard Mr. Leblanc speaking, and when I heard Saint Pierre and Miquelon, I never felt my hair going up in my arms so fast in my life and stayed that long, that I felt like finally, you know, a way for us to be free again. You know, one thing that people don't realize about Saint Pierre and Miquelon, we're only 6,000 people, and we are stuck on an island. So, like we often say, Saint Pierre and Miquelon is beautiful, but for us, it's like a jail with an open sky, right?
I think immediately would be to hug mom and dad and my brother, sister-in-law, my sister, their kids, and the rest of the family, because we're really, really large.
Honest, I know a lot of people, personally, I got a lot of friends on the Buren Peninsula. I know they would love to be able to come over, but now they're debating because you guys got to pay for the COVID test. Apparently, it's $250 of what I heard. So that's a big budget for a family, say a family of four. If everybody got to get a COVID test and everything paid for, I think a lot of people is going to be debating, you know, because why would I spend that much money when I can go somewhere else and stay in Newfoundland and don't have to pay that test? So to be honest, I'm a bit iffy about it. I'm really wondering what the people from Canada is going to think about Spain spending that much money, to be honest.
It's a magical place, you know, and having most of my family living over there, it's always really, really enjoyable going back. It feels like I'm back to my childhood, really.
Well, for now, Ottawa's ban on direct flights from India will stay in place for all airports.
While progress is being made, the situation in India is still very serious.
The restrictions have been extended until August 21st. Public health officials say the decision is aimed at preventing the further spread of the Delta variant. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney is raising eyebrows on social media after calling the Calgary Stampede, quote, Canada's first major event after the pandemic. Now, those comments concern health experts who are warning Albertans that the pandemic is, in fact, far from over. The CBC's Jennifer Lee has more.
In a slickly produced video, along with the post-pandemic message, Jason Kenney can be seen flipping pancakes, shaking hands, and embracing Stampede goers for photos.
And are you happy that Alberta is going to be open for good?
Look, the pandemic isn't over.
Timothy Caulfield, who teaches health law and policy at the U of A, says he gets that people just want to get back to normal. But
I am worried that this kind of messaging downplays the fact that we aren't there yet, that we still have work to do. We still need to encourage vaccination uptake. We still need to deal with vaccination hesitancy and complacency.
Calgary internal medicine specialist Dr. Gabriel Fabro says the Delta variant still poses a threat.
Telling people that it's over when it's not yet over might run the risk of reduced precautions, people not being careful, people perhaps receiving the message that they don't need to go get a second dose.
And Caulfield says the message could make it tricky to get buy-in if there is a need to reintroduce any public health measures down the line. Jennifer Lee, CBC News, Calgary.
Britain's Prime Minister is facing new accusations over how he's handled the pandemic. In a new TV interview, a former chief advisor is lashing out at Boris Johnson, saying that he was dismissive of COVID-19 cases and against a second lockdown. The CBC's Dominic Velitis has more from England.
This is Dominic Cummings' first broadcast interview since leaving Downing Street last year, and in it he delves into the events and conversations that were taking place at Downing Street in October of last year. Now, at the time, COVID cases were beginning to rise rapidly in the country, and a debate was taking place within the government about whether or not there should be a second national lockdown. Here's what Dominic Cummings had to say about Boris Johnson's feelings at the time.
The Prime Minister's attitude was that essentially the first lockdown was a disaster, we should never have done it. His attitude at that point was a weird mix of partly it's all nonsense and lockdowns don't work anyway, and partly, well, this is terrible, but the people who are dying are essentially all over 80, and we can't kill the economy just because of people dying over 80.
And Cummings doesn't stop there. He makes several other bombshell claims in this interview, including how at the beginning of the pandemic, he had to personally talk Boris Johnson out of continuing his weekly meetings with the Queen when people within government were starting to self-isolate with COVID symptoms. Take a listen.
He said, well, that's what I do every Wednesday, sod this, I'm going to go and see her. So I said to him, there's people in this office who are isolating. You might have coronavirus, I might have coronavirus. You can't go and see the Queen. What if you go and see her and then give the Queen coronavirus? I just said, if you go and you give her coronavirus and she dies, what are you going to... You can't do that. You can't risk that. That's completely insane. And he said he basically just hadn't thought it through.
It is pretty damaging stuff for the Prime Minister. The full fallout will probably come after this interview has aired tonight and people have had the chance to see it in its entirety. Downing Street, meanwhile, hasn't denied the claims Cummings has made in this interview. But earlier, a spokesperson said the Prime Minister had taken the necessary action to protect lives and livelihoods. Action, the spokesperson said, was guided by the best scientific advice. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, Bristol, England.
A totally different story with a UK connection. You're seeing British tourists arriving on the Greek island of Corfu yesterday. Fully vaccinated British residents can now travel to Greece without self-isolating when they get back. Greece's tourism industry relies heavily on British travellers, The UK accounts for 40% of Corfu's tourism. Greece has also lifted restrictions to allow vaccinated people to eat and drink indoors, and outdoor masking rules have been lifted for everyone. But with a rise in new infections of late, authorities say they're trying to remain cautious.
Welcome back. Well, Muslims around the world are marking Eid al-Adha. It's a day typically of communal prayers and large social gatherings. Of course, that's been curtailed by the pandemic. Many countries have eased some restrictions this year, allowing people to visit a mosque. Here in St. John's, 3 consecutive Eid prayers were held at the Jack Byrne Arena today. Meanwhile, Jerusalem saw thousands gather outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Similar scenes in other parts of the Middle East, in Jordan, Egypt, and Syria. Most regional health officials are appealing to the public to stay home and celebrate this Eid with their families.
And the Prime Minister visited a mosque in Hamilton to greet worshippers on Eid. Here's some of what Justin Trudeau had to say.
The opportunity to celebrate Eid together with family, more slightly more gatherings, celebration with the kids, is also a recognition of it's a time of reflection, a time of sacrifice. It is good to also think about our responsibilities towards a better future. We live in a wonderful country where Canadians have understood, perhaps quicker than anyone else around the world, that differences and diversity can and must be a source of strength, a source of resilience.
Time for a look at the long-range forecast. This wild weather we've been having, especially today with all the rain and sunshine. How long is this kind of weather going to last?
Well, we're going to see one more day of some of that humid air tomorrow, but things are going to stay unsettled for most of this week, unfortunately, until we get to about the weekend. Let's take a look at those, the future tracker just to show you. So there's another area of low pressure moving in from the south. That's going to affect most of the province as we get into late day Thursday, but it is still going to be unsettled through the day. So you're still looking at the chance of some showers. As the day goes on, though, it essentially parks itself, and we're going to see more shower activity as we head through the day on Friday. It looks like for most of the island, and then just scraping parts of the big land with this chance of some scattered showers. But that will head east as we get into Saturday, but still going to stay unsettled. It looks like the Avalon, though, may stay out of that. We may even see some sunshine through the afternoon on Saturday. But overall, temperatures on Thursday are going to stay cool again. So we're going to see that drop tomorrow, and then it's going to continue to be quite cool as we see now easterly flow on Thursday. So temperatures around 15 degrees for St. John's. Same thing for Gander as you head towards the west coast, a little bit warmer, 21 degrees. And then temperatures across the big land, take a look at that, 20 to 22 degrees with some sunshine. A little bit of increase in cloud, though, for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and that's just because the low is going to start to edge a little bit further north as the day goes on. As we head into Friday, more sunshine again for Lab West as well as the north, but that chance of showers will start to creep further north as well. So Happy Valley Goose Bay, southeastern portions of Labrador, and most of the island will see that chance of showers. However, we will see some sun at times as well. A few peaks of sun certainly possible. Temperatures are going to start to warm up a little bit, 17 to 22 degrees across the island. Marystown going to sit around 20, and then the northern peninsula, you'll hover in and around 10 to 12 degrees as your afternoon highs on Friday. We will start to see a warm up, though, as the week goes on. As we get into the weekend, take a look at those temperatures. Right now I have some sunshine, or at least a mix of sun and cloud for Saturday for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland, 20 to 22 degrees. And so basically we're looking at temperatures in the low 20s through the weekend. Chance of showers will return again on Sunday. Now for Central, you're looking at some sunshine as well in the mix. However, like I said, it'll stay unsettled. Temperatures will be in the low 20s, overnight lows in the double digits, 10 to 14 degrees. And then for Western Newfoundland, a little bit more gray skies, it looks like. And unfortunately, I have showers in there right through Sunday for you, and temperatures hovering around 19 degrees through the weekend. For Eastern Labrador, some sunshine by Sunday, 25 degrees. And then for Western Labrador, a nice stretch of weather for you. Temperatures in the low to mid 20s. And your overnight lows not too bad either. So I wanted to share this photo. I know I showed you a photo similar to this yesterday, but I love this one too. This is Bottle Cove Beach in Lark Harbor. Thank you to Gary Forward for sharing that lovely shot with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
So many beautiful sunset shots lately.
I know, and there are just so many beautiful places across the province as well, and we always get those lovely shots. It's nice.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us. Hopefully tomorrow, actually, remember that shark video that we saw earlier in the show where they hooked the shark? I'm hoping to speak with DFO, shark expert, tomorrow about what to do when you're in that kind of a situation with that kind of close encounter with a shark, if you're out cod fishing and you just happen to hook a shark.
Yeah,
so
how do you unhook it?
Yeah,
very
like
carefully.
A pretty scary situation, actually. So hoping to get some useful information from them tomorrow, and that should be on the show tomorrow night. So look out for it.
See you then.
Good night.